Nia Jackson, 32, strides into an Atlanta courtroom, judicial robes flowing, gavel shining, as Victor Ramsay, a disgraced cop, gapes in disbelief, recognizing her as the judge in his brutality trial. 12 months earlier, he'd slammed her against her car during a traffic stop, smirking, blind to her looming judgeship. His assumption of dominance crumbles. Now she wields power over his fate. This clash ignites a year of vengeance and prejudice, forever altering their paths. What twisted road led here? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice against corruption, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's explosive episode is one you can't miss. Nia Jackson eased her beat-up Honda Civic through the sticky Atlanta night, the air thick with summer humidity clinging to her skin like a second shirt. She'd just wrapped a pro bono case at a crumbling community center 10 miles south, defending a single mum against eviction, her third win that month. At 32, she was a rising star in the legal aid world, her sharp mind honed by years of clawing through law school on scholarships and grit. The dashboard clock glowed 11:32, and exhaustion tugged at her bones, but a quiet pride kept her upright. She flicked the radio to a low hum of blues, the gravelly voice of Muddy Waters filling the car as she navigated the potholed streets of southwest Atlanta. Her headlights sliced through the dark, catching the glint of shattered glass on the asphalt, remnants of a city that never slept. She turned onto a narrow road flanked by sagging row houses, their peeling paint glowing faintly under flickering streetlights. Traffic was light, just a few late-night stragglers weaving home from bars or shifts. Nia kept her speed steady at 25 miles per hour, well under the limit, her taillights glowing red, and her turn signals in perfect order. She'd learned early to keep her car spotless, registration current, a habit born from too many stories of stops gone wrong. Her hands rested lightly on the wheel, nails unpainted, fingers tapping to the beat. She was 3 miles from her cramped apartment, already tasting the cold water she'd gulp before crashing into bed. Then, a flash of blue and red erupted in her rearview mirror, sharp and sudden, like a predator's eyes locking onto prey. Her stomach tightened, a reflex she hated but couldn't shake. She checked her speed again, 24 now, no swerving, no violations. The squad car loomed closer, its siren blaring once, a short, barking command. Nia swallowed, her throat dry, and flicked on her right blinker, easing the Honda to the curb beside a shuttered bodega. The street was silent, save for the distant buzz of cicadas and the thud of her own pulse in her ears. She killed the engine, placed the keys on the dash, and kept her hands at 10 and 2, palms open, visible. She'd memorized the drill, a survival script etched into her since she was 16, and first pulled over for looking suspicious in her dad's old pickup. The cop took his time, his boots crunching gravel as he approached. Nia glanced at the side mirror, catching a glimpse of a broad figure. White, mid-40s, his uniform stretched tight across a barreled chest. He stopped at her window, a flashlight beam stabbing into her eyes, forcing her to squint. She rolled, the glass down with a slow crank, the mechanism squeaking, and forced a tight smile, though her lips felt stiff. "Good evening, officer," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor creeping up her spine. "Is there a reason you pulled me over?" He didn't answer right away. Officer Victor Ramsay tilted his head, his jaw hard as granite, eyes raking. Over her face, her braids pulled back in a neat bun, her plain grey blazer still wrinkled from the day. His badge glinted under the streetlight, his name etched in stark letters. "License and registration," he snapped, his tone clipped, like she'd already wasted his time. Nia nodded, keeping her movements deliberate, reaching for the glove. "Box." "Of course, here you go," she said, handing over the documents, her fingers brushing the edge of her insurance card. Victor snatched them, stepping back without a word, his boots scuffing the pavement as he retreated to his cruiser. Nia waited, the minutes stretching into an eternity, her breath shallow. She glanced at the clock, 11:37 now, then back to the empty street. A stray dog trotted past, ribs jutting under matted fur, its shadow flickering in the squad. Cars pulsing lights. She wondered if he'd run her plates yet, if he'd find the car clean, no tickets, no warrants, just a woman driving home. But the prickle on her neck told her this wasn't about rules. 11:42 ticked over when Victor returned, his face sterner, lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You in a hurry, ma'am?" he asked, leaning in, his breath sour with coffee and stale cigarettes. Nia met his gaze, her brown eyes steady against his icy blue. "Not particularly," she replied, voice even, refusing to flinch. "Is something wrong?" He didn't answer, just stared, his silence thick with unspoken accusations, daring her to push back. She felt the weight of it, the unspoken script where she was already guilty of something he'd decided long before he flipped on those lights. "You made a wide turn back there," he said finally, the words flat, unconvincing, like he'd pulled them from a hat. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle?" Nia's heart stuttered, a cold sweat beading on her palms, but she kept her face calm. She knew the law, knew he had no grounds, not yet. "Officer, am I being detained?" she asked, polite but firm, testing the water. His posture stiffened, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Step out now," he barked, his hand drifting to the holster at his hip, fingers brushing the grip of his Glock. Nia's mind raced, legal clauses flashing like warning signs. No probable cause, no justification, but the street was a ghost. Town, no cameras, no witnesses, just her and this man with a gun and a grudge. She weighed the risk, compliance versus escalation, her pulse hammering. Slowly she unlatched the door, stepping out into the muggy air, her sneakers silent on the asphalt. Victor loomed over her, 6'2" to her 5'5", his shadow, swallowing hers. "What's your name?" he asked, glancing at the license still in his hand. "Nia Jackson," she said, chin up, fighting the heat rising in her cheeks. "What are you doing out here this late?" She inhaled, steadying herself. "I'm returning from a meeting." He cut her off, voice sharp as a blade. "Turn around, spread your arms." Before she could protest, he grabbed her shoulder, spinning her with a rough jerk, slamming her chest against the Honda's hood. The metal burned hot against her ribs, her breath catching as pain flared. "This is unnecessary," she said, voice rising, indignation breaking through. "I haven't done anything wrong." Victor ignored her, his hands brisk and rough, patting her down, fingers digging into her sides, her thighs, searching for nothing but power. Her blazer snagged on a jagged edge of the hood, tearing a thread loose. She sucked in a sharp breath, her mind blazing with outrage, humiliation scorching. Her skin. She could have shouted she was a lawyer, days from a judgeship. But the words stuck, useless against his arrogance. He finished, finding nothing, and spun her back, his eyes hunting for fear, submission, anything to feed his ego. Nia stood tall, meeting his stare, her chest heaving but her spine steel. "Got anything in the car I need to know about?" he asked, voice thick, leaning closer, his flashlight dangling loose. "No," she said firmly, her gaze unflinching. He gestured to the passenger side. "Mind if I look?" She squared her shoulders. "Do you have probable cause? Because unless I'm being arrested, you don't have the right." His lips twisted into a sneer, her defiance a spark to his fuse. "Look, lady, we can do this. Easy or hard. I'll write you up for reckless driving, maybe resisting, interfering with an investigation. You want that?" Nia's fists clenched at her sides, nails biting her palms. She glanced around, the bodega's faded sign mocking her, no help in sight. She knew refusal meant hours, maybe worse, a night in a cell, her career smeared before. It peaked. "Fine," she muttered, the word bitter on her tongue. "Go ahead." Victor grinned, a predator's triumph, and yanked open the passenger door, his flashlight beam slashing through the interior. Nia stood, arms crossed, anger boiling as he rifled through her glove box, flipped the seats, tossed her briefcase. Onto the floor, papers spilling like wounded birds. He found nothing. No drugs, no weapons, just a legal pad scribbled with case notes and a half-empty water bottle. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, and stepped closer, his smirk sharp. "You like giving cops a hard time?" Nia inhaled slow, her voice ice. "I'm simply exercising my rights, officer." He studied her, annoyance flickering. Then scorn took over. With a curt nod, he shoved her license and registration back, the papers crumpled. "Go on, get out of here," he said, lip curling. "And watch your driving." Nia snatched the documents, her hand trembling as she stuffed them into her purse. She slid into the driver's seat, slamming the door harder than she meant, the sound echoing in the stillness. Her heart pounded, temples throbbing as she twisted the key, the engine sputtering to life. She pulled away, eyes locked forward, refusing to glance at Victor in the mirror, though she felt his stare boring into her back. He stood there, arms folded, a king in his tiny fiefdom, smug and certain he'd won. But Nia's mind churned, her split lip stinging as she licked blood from it, already plotting her next move, a spark of defiance igniting. Victor had no clue who he'd just crossed, or how that night would haunt him. Nia Jackson woke the morning after the stop, with a dull ache in her chest where Victor Ramsay had slammed her against the Honda's hood. Her split lip crusted with dried blood, she dabbed away with a wince. The mirror showed faint bruises blooming on her arms, a roadmap of last night's outrage, but her eyes burned with something fiercer than pain. She wasn't about to let this slide into the shadows like so many other stops, forgotten by a system. That didn't care. What kind of justice let a cop like Victor walk free after that? She pulled on a crisp white blouse, ignoring the sting as fabric grazed her tender skin, and drove straight to the Atlanta Police Department's internal affairs office, her jaw set tight. The building loomed gray and squat on Peachtree Street, its windows reflecting a city buzzing with morning traffic, horns blaring like a chorus of impatience. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and bureaucracy, the hum of fluorescent lights, buzzing overhead as Nia sat across from a bored-looking sergeant named Ellis, his badge dull from years of wear. She laid it out, voice steady, recounting Victor's baseless stop, the cuffs biting her wrists, the hood's heat searing her ribs. "I've got proof," she said, sliding a USB drive across the desk, her trump card. A friend at a local garage owed her a favor, had a buddy in dispatch who'd slipped her the dashcam audio from Victor's cruiser. It wasn't much, just muffled grunts and his snarled, "Trouble finds your kind," but it was enough to puncture his lie of a wide turn. Ellis scratched his stubbled chin, barely glancing at the drive. "We'll look into it," he muttered, his tone flat as the linoleum floor. Did he even care? Or was this just another file to bury? Days crawled by, Nia throwing herself into work, prepping for her swearing in as Fulton County's youngest black female judge, a title that felt heavier now, tarnished by Victor's hands. She'd earned it through sleepless nights and courtroom battles, her appointment announced 2 weeks ago to a ripple of local applause. The ceremony was set for next Friday, 6 days away, and she'd be damned if she let this shadow her moment. Then on Tuesday, her phone buzzed with a voicemail from Ellis. "Officer Ramsay's been suspended. 2 weeks, no pay, investigations pending." Nia exhaled, a knot loosening in her gut. 2 weeks wasn't much, but it was a slap, a crack, in Victor's armor. Could this be the start of real accountability? She headed to the courthouse that afternoon, a bounce in her step, her robes waiting in a box at home, a symbol of the power she'd soon wield. Victor, meanwhile, stewed in his cramped duplex 10 miles east, the suspension notice crumpled in his fist. 2 weeks off for some nobody who dared talk back. He paced the stained carpet, boots thudding, his broad frame tense with fury. The precinct had buzzed with whispers, colleagues shooting him sidelong glances, a few nodding approval, others muttering about uppity complaints. He'd been on the force 19 years, built a rep for keeping trouble spots in line, and now this. His suspension wasn't public yet, but the sting gnawed at him, a wound to his pride he couldn't let heal. Who did she think she was dragging him through this? He cracked open a beer, the can cold against his palm, and scrolled his phone, fingers hovering over a group chat labeled Blue Line Brotherhood, a digital den of cops and ex-cops who shared his worldview. By Wednesday night, Victor had a plan. He typed fast, thumbs jabbing the screen. "Got a snitch stirring trouble. Nia Jackson lives at 1427 Oakview, apt 3B. Cop-hating thug needs a lesson." He hit send, the message pinging to 23 others, a mix of badges and bigots who'd jump at the bait. He leaned back, smirking, imagining her smug face when the payback hit. Did she really think a complaint would stop him? The chat lit, up thumbs-ups and fire emojis, one reply promising to handle it. Victor didn't care how, just that she'd feel it. He tossed the phone aside, cracked his knuckles and slept sounder than he had in days, the beer can sweating on the table. Thursday dawned muggy and grey, Nia up early, reviewing case notes at her kitchen table, a chipped mug of coffee steaming beside her laptop. She'd moved past the stop, or so she thought, her mind on the oath she'd take, the gavel she'd grip. The suspension felt like a win, small but real, a step toward scrubbing Victor's stain from her path. She showered, pulled on a navy skirt suit, and headed out, locking the door to her third-floor walk-up, a modest spot she'd rented since law school. The stairwell smelled of mildew, the railing sticky under her hand, but it was home, a sanctuary she'd carved out, or so she believed. She returned that evening, 8:45, arms full of grocery bags, the sky bruising purple with dusk. Her key stuck in the lock, a familiar annoyance, but when the door swung open, her breath snagged in her throat. The apartment was a war zone, glass shards glinting on the hardwood where windows once stood, furniture upended, cushions slashed open like gutted fish. Spray paint screamed across the walls, jagged red letters spelling nigger and cop killer. The stench of aerosol thick in the air. Her TV lay cracked, a spiderweb of fractures radiating from a brick still lodged in the screen. Nia dropped the bags, oranges rolling across the floor, her knees buckling as she gripped the doorframe. Who could do this? She stumbled forward, glass, crunching under her sneakers, her pulse a wild drumbeat. Her law books, years of notes, lay shredded, pages fluttering like dying moths. The kitchen drawers hung open, silverware scattered, a butcher knife stabbed into the counter, pinning a note. Back off or bleed. Nia's hands shook, rage and fear tangling in her chest, a scream clawing up her throat, but dying silent. She fumbled for her phone, dialing 911, her voice cracking as she reported it. "My place, it's trashed, someone broke in, hate crime, please hurry." The dispatcher's calm grated, promising a unit soon, but Nia knew soon meant nothing in this neighborhood. 2 officers arrived 40 minutes later, a lanky white guy and a tired black woman, both in rumpled uniforms. They poked around, scribbling notes, the woman's eyes softening as she traced the slurs, the man's face blank. "Probably kids," he said, shrugging, though the brick and knife mocked his words. "Any enemies?" the woman asked, sharper, her pen pausing. Nia hesitated, Victor's sneer flashing in her mind. "A cop, Victor Ramsay," she said, voice low. "I filed a complaint. He's suspended." The woman nodded, jotting it down, but the man snorted. "Ramsay? Good luck proving that." They left, promising an investigation, their flashlight beams fading down the stairs. Nia stood alone, the apartment hollow, her sanctuary gutted. Had Victor done this himself, or sent his dogs? She sank onto the ruined couch, springs jabbing, her thighs, and stared at the wreckage. The suspension hadn't stopped him. It had lit a fuse. How far would he go to break her? She thought of her swearing in, the robes waiting, the bench she'd fought for. This wasn't just an attack, it was a declaration, a promise of worse to come. Her fingers curled into fists, nails biting her palms, resolve hardening like molten steel cooling fast. She'd clean this up, move if she had to, but she wouldn't bow. Victor thought he'd won again, grinning somewhere with his beer, oblivious that he'd just forged her into something unbreakable. "Now, let's hear from you." Should Nia have stayed silent after the stop, or was fighting back worth this chaos? Drop a comment number 1 if you think she's right to push against Victor's tyranny, or number 2 if you'd have played it safe. What would you do with a cop like him in your rear view? Smash that like if her courage fires. You up and subscribe, because tomorrow we're diving deeper into this storm of vengeance and justice. So, what happens when Victor's next move turns bloodier than paint? Nia Jackson hauled the last trash bag of shattered glass and torn books down the creaking stairs of her ruined apartment, her arms trembling from exhaustion, her split lip still tender 3 days after Victor Ramsay's stop. The vandalism had forced her hand. She'd signed a lease on a new place that morning, a small duplex 15 miles north in Buckhead, closer to the Fulton County Courthouse, where her swearing-in loomed just 2 days away. She'd spent the weekend scrubbing paint from her walls, boarding windows with plywood scavenged from a hardware store, and dodging calls from her mom, who'd freak if she knew. The cops had done nothing. Their investigation a ghost. No fingerprints, no leads. Just a shrug and a case number she'd scrawled on a napkin now crumpled in her purse. Victor's suspension held, but Nia felt his shadow, a predator circling, waiting to pounce. Monday broke hot and hazy, the sun a dull smear over Atlanta, as Nia moved into the duplex, a squat brick box with a patchy lawn and a single oak drooping. In the yard. She unpacked fast, stacking law texts on a wobbly shelf, hanging her new judicial robes in a closet that smelled faintly of mothballs. The swearing-in was tomorrow, and she'd start hearing cases Wednesday, petty thefts and traffic. Tickets, a soft launch into the bench she'd bled for. She locked the door, triple-checked the deadbolt, and crashed on a mattress still wrapped in plastic, her body aching but her mind buzzing. Could she really leave the stop and the break-in behind? She drifted into a shallow sleep, dreaming of gavels pounding like fists. Tuesday dawned with a buzz from her phone, 6:15, the courthouse clerk confirming her ceremony at 10. Nia showered, the hot water stinging the bruises fading on her arms, and pulled on a charcoal suit, her braids swept into a tight knot. She drove downtown, the Honda rattling over speed bumps, her stomach a knot of nerves and pride. The ceremony was quick, a small crowd in a wood-paneled room, her parents beaming from the front row, her dad's eyes wet, her mom clutching a tissue. The chief judge, a wiry black woman named Lorraine Tate, pinned the robe on Nia's shoulders, her voice warm. Fulton County's youngest, and one of its brightest. Nia swore the oath, her words steady, the gavel heavy in her hand. She was Judge Jackson now, a title that felt like armor. Her first day on the bench came Wednesday, a humid morning that soaked her blouse as she parked in the courthouse garage, a concrete maze 3 levels deep. She handled 6 cases by noon, shoplifting, a DUI, a kid caught with weed, her rulings crisp, her voice cutting through the room's stale air. Defendants shuffled in, some nervous, some defiant, but Nia saw them all, weighing their stories against the law. She adjourned for lunch, stepping into the garage at 12:45, her keys jangling, the Honda parked 50 feet away under a flickering light. The space was quiet, just the echo of her heels and the distant hum of an elevator. She didn't see Victor until he lunged. He came from behind a pillar, a blur of muscle and malice, his broad frame dwarfing her as he swung. Nia caught a flash of his face, eyes wild before his pistol butt cracked against her temple, a white-hot burst of pain exploding in her skull. She stumbled, crashing into a parked SUV, blood streaming warm and sticky down her cheek, pooling in the collar of her suit. "You'll pay for snitching," Victor snarled, his voice a low growl, spit flecking his lips. He'd tailed her from the courthouse, enraged by the suspension, the whispers at the precinct, the internal affairs file thickening with her complaint. His uniform was gone, swapped for a black hoodie, but the badge still glinted in his mind, a shield he thought unbreakable. Nia's vision swam, her knees buckling, but she lashed out, adrenaline surging. Her foot caught his shin, a sharp kick that staggered him, his grunt echoing off the concrete. He swung again, the pistol grazing her shoulder, but she ducked, rolling under the SUV, gravel biting her palms. Victor cursed, stomping closer, his boots scuffing the ground. "You think you're untouchable now, huh? Some fancy judge?" He fired, a single shot, the crack deafening, the bullet ricocheting off a pillar 10 feet away, a warning that singed the air. Nia scrambled, her breath ragged, crawling between cars, her suit tearing at the seams, blood smearing the pavement like a trail. She reached the garage exit, 30 yards from where she'd started, and bolted upright, sprinting for the street. Victor's footsteps pounded behind, then faded, his bulk no match for her speed. She burst onto the sidewalk. Midday traffic. Roaring past, horns blaring as she waved her arms, blood dripping onto her shoes. A cabbie screeched to a stop, an older black man with grey stubble, his eyes widening. "Jesus, lady, you okay?" Nia collapsed into the back seat, gasping. "Police!" Now. He floored it, tires squealing, the courthouse shrinking in the rear view as she pressed her sleeve to her temple, the wound pulsing with every heartbeat. At the station, 2 miles east, Nia sat in a sterile room, a paramedic stitching her head, 4 jagged loops of black thread sealing the gash. Her shoulder throbbed, a purple welt rising where the pistol grazed her, but she refused painkillers, her mind razor-sharp. She told the story to a detective named Carter, a lanky white guy with a notepad, his pen scratching fast. Victor Ramsay, off-duty cop, attacked me in the garage, shot at me. She pointed to the blood-soaked suit, now bagged as evidence, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Carter frowned, flipping pages. Ramsay's suspended, yeah? You got history with him? Stopped me last week, no cause, Nia said, her gaze hard. Filed a complaint, then my place got trashed, now this. Carter nodded, but his eyes flicked away, uneasy. No cameras in that garage level, and no witnesses yet. Bullets. In a wall somewhere we'll look, but proving it's him. He trailed off, shrugging, the same limp excuse she'd heard after the break-in. Nia's fists clenched, nails digging into her palms. The system wasn't blind, it was winking at her, letting Victor slip through again. She left the station at 4, a bandage stark against her dark skin, the paramedics' warning to rest ignored. Victor, meanwhile, slunk back to his duplex, the hoodie balled up in his trunk, the pistol wiped clean and stashed under his mattress. He'd parked 2 blocks from the courthouse, tailed her on foot, his pulse racing with every step. The suspension had stripped his shifts, left him stewing, and her complaint had lit the match. He'd meant to scare her, maybe crack her skull, teach her to back off. That shot was impulse, rage boiling over when she fought back. Now he sprawled on his couch, a beer sweating in his hand, grinning at the TV flickering mute. She'd run, bleeding, but he'd bet his badge she couldn't pin it on him. Cops didn't rat, and evidence was a myth in that garage. Nia didn't go home. She checked into a cheap motel off I-85, 10 miles from the duplex, paying cash, her Honda hidden under a tarp in the lot. The room stank of bleach, the bed sagging, but it was safe, anonymous. She sat on the edge, staring at her reflection in a cracked mirror, the stitches a dark slash above her eye, blood crusted in her braids. Her robes hung in buckhead, her bench waiting, but Victor's attack had ripped through her triumph. How many more blows before he stopped? She pulled out her phone, dialed her old law school mentor, a grizzled attorney named Marcus Gray, his voice gravelly when he answered. Nia, what's wrong? Cop tried to kill me today, she said flat, recounting the garage, the shot. The cop's shrug. Marcus cursed, low and fierce. You're a judge now, they can't bury this. Sue the bastard, the whole department. I'll help. Nia nodded to the empty room, her mind churning. She'd fight smarter, not just harder, turn Victor's violence into her weapon. He thought he'd scared her off, grinning in his hole, oblivious that she'd already shifted the board. Tomorrow she'd file, her stitches a badge of war, her resolve a blade sharpening with every pulse of pain. Nia Jackson woke in the motel room at 5:30, the cheap mattress creaking under her as she shifted, her temple throbbing where Victor Ramsay's pistol had split her skin 2 days ago. The stitches itched, 4 black threads puckering her. Flesh? A stark reminder of the garage attack she'd barely escaped. She'd spent the night on the phone with Marcus Gray, her law school mentor, his voice a lifeline through the crackling line. Sue the department, he'd urged. Not just Ramsay, they're shielding him, and you've got the scars to prove it. Nia stared at the cracked ceiling, her breath shallow, the weight of his words sinking in. Could she really take on the whole system, a freshly minted judge against a machine built to crush her? She checked out by 6, the motel clerk barely glancing up from his newspaper, and drove the Honda back to her Buckhead duplex, the tarp flapping loose in the trunk. The sun climbed slow, painting Atlanta in a sticky golden haze as she showered, the water stinging her shoulders welt, then dressed in a steel-grey suit, her robes folded on the dresser. She met Marcus at his cluttered office downtown, a 3rd floor, walk up above a bodega, the air thick with cigarette smoke and old paper. He was 60, wiry, his bald head gleaming under a buzzing bulb, his tie crooked from years of fighting, losing battles. Hospital pics, ballistics from the shot, your statement, he said, stacking files. It's airtight, Nia. They can't dodge this. By noon they filed the lawsuit at the Fulton County Courthouse, Nia's hands steady as she signed, her name bold against the page. Marcus grinned, clapping her shoulder. Ramsay and the APD, joint and several liability, 5 million for assault, emotional distress, civil rights violations. The clerk stamped it, a dull thud echoing in the marble hall, and Nia felt a flicker of triumph, her stitches pulling as she smiled. She was back on the bench that afternoon, ruling on a vandalism case, her gavel a quiet thunder, her voice slicing. Through the courtroom's hum, word of the suit spread fast, whispers rippling among bailiffs, a janitor nodding her way with a clenched fist of respect. The story hit the news by Friday, a week after her swearing in, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, splashing rogue cop exposed, Judge sues APD across its front page. TV crews swarmed the courthouse steps, mics thrusting at anyone with a badge, reporters shouting over each other. Nia's face flashed on screens citywide, her stitches a badge of war, her suit a symbol of defiance. Protesters gathered, black, activists chanting her name, signs bobbing, "Justice for Nia." She caught a glimpse from her chambers, heart pounding, a swell of pride mixing with dread. Had she lit a spark that could burn the corruption down? Social media erupted, hashtags trending, her inbox flooding with support, strangers calling her a hero, a warrior against a racist beast. Victor Ramsay saw it too, sprawled on his couch, the suspension dragging into its second week, his duplex a cave of empty beer cans and takeout boxes. The TV blared her face, her lawsuit, his name in mud, and his gut churned with rage. He hurled a bottle at the screen, glass shattering, foam dripping down the cracked plastic. "5 million? For that?" he roared, pacing, his boots thudding, on the warped floor. The precinct had iced him out, his captain dodging calls, his Blue Line Brotherhood chat gone silent. But he wasn't done, not by a long shot. He'd make her regret this, turn her win into ash. The department moved. Fast, a counter-strike brewing behind closed doors. Captain Dwayne Holt, a thick-necked white man with 30 years on the force, sat in his office Monday, blinds drawn, a stack of Nia's complaint files glaring up at him. He'd buried Victor's dirt before, excessive force claims swept under rugs, witnesses paid off with nods and favors. Now Nia's suit threatened to rip the lid off, expose the rot he'd nursed. "She's unstable," he muttered to a clerk named Perry, a weaselly guy with greasy hair and a knack for forgery. "Dig up something. Anything." Perry smirked, pocketing a crisp 100, and got to work. By Wednesday, the APD leaked a bombshell, a doctored psych evaluation landing on a local news desk, time-stamped 6 months back, before Nia's judgeship. Judge Jackson exhibits paranoia, hostility toward authority, unfit for judicial duty, it read, signed by a fake shrink named Dr. Ellis Vance. The ink was still wet when Channel 11 ran it, a smug anchor dissecting Nia's mental collapse live at 6. Her hospital photos from the attack. Buried. The ballistics tying Victor's gun to the garage shot? Ignored. The narrative flipped, Nia no longer the victim but a loose cannon, a black woman too angry to judge. Her first big case, a felony assault, got yanked Thursday, reassigned to an E. Grizzled white judge named Callahan, whispers of conflict trailing her down the hall. Nia saw it unfold from her chambers, the TV flickering mute as colleagues averted their eyes, her phone buzzing with Marcus's furious texts. "They're smearing you, classic play." She stormed to his office, the eval clutched in her fist, ink smudging her fingers. "This is fake, Marcus. I never saw a shrink, never sat for this." He nodded, pacing, his tie swinging. "Holt's behind it, bet my license, bribe someone to forge it." Nia's chest tightened, betrayal sinking deep. The department hadn't just shielded Victor, they'd weaponized her win, twisted her, fight into a noose. How could they turn her scars into lies? Victor got wind Friday, reinstated that morning, his suspension cut short by Holt's pull. He strutted into the precinct, badge gleaming, colleagues slapping his back, a few muttering good riddance under their breath. Perry had slipped him the eval's draft, a wink over coffee, a bribe well spent. "She's done," Victor grinned, sipping bourbon at a dive bar that night, the TV overhead replaying the smear. He'd dodged her suit, flipped the script, and now she'd crumble, her bench a joke. He toasted the air, glass clinking, certain he'd crushed her for good. Nia didn't crumble. She sat in her duplex Saturday, The evals spread on her kitchen table, a laptop glowing with case law. The courthouse buzzed with doubt, her big case gone, but she wasn't out. Marcus dug through APD records, hunting Holt's tracks, while Nia drafted a motion to quash the leak, her pen slashing paper. The suit still stood, evidence untouched, and she'd claw her way back. Hadn't she survived worse? She thought of the stop, the vandalism, the pistol cracking her skull, each blow forging her tougher. Victor and Holt thought they'd won, sipping their victory, blind to the storm she'd unleashed. Let's get your take. Was Nia naive to trust the system would back her, or is her fight the only way to crack its shell? Drop comment number 1 if you're rooting for her to burn the APD down, or number 2 if you think she's in over her head. Should she have seen this betrayal coming, or is the system's rot too deep to predict? Hit like if her grit's got you hooked, and subscribe because tomorrow's twist will flip this game wide open. So, what happens when Nia's next stand turns her into a public pariah? Nia Jackson sat at her kitchen table Sunday morning, the forged psych evaluation still spread out like a battle map, its lies smudged from her restless fingers. The stitches on her temple itched, a week old now, a jagged reminder of Victor Ramsay's pistol whip in the garage. She'd spent the weekend with Marcus Gray, her mentor, piecing together a counterattack, her laptop humming with drafts of a press conference script. The APD's smear had stripped her first big case, dented her reputation, but the lawsuit stood, $5 million on the line, evidence solid as stone. She wasn't done, not by a mile. She pulled on a navy blazer, smoothed her braids, and drove to the courthouse, the Honda's engine rattling through Atlanta's muggy dawn. Monday, 9 sharp, Nia stood on the courthouse steps, a podium wobbling under her grip, cameras flashing like a swarm of fireflies. Marcus flanked her, his tie still crooked, while a dozen reporters jostled below, mics thrusting, their questions a dull roar. She'd called the press herself, bypassing the courthouse PR, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The psych eval is a fraud," she said, holding up the document, its fake signature glaring under the sun. "No Dr. Ellis Vance exists. No session ever happened. The APD forged it to silence me, to bury my suit against Officer Victor Ramsay for assault." She laid out the hospital photos, the ballistics from the garage shot, her words sharp, unyielding. "I'm a judge, not a punching bag. They can't erase the truth." The crowd erupted, cheers from activists mixing with skeptical murmurs from suits in the back. A black woman in a bright head wrap shouted, "Tell it, Judge," while a white reporter scribbled fast, his brow furrowed. The story hit the wires by noon. Judge Jackson exposes APD smear, trending online, her face plastered across blogs and TV screens. By afternoon, she was back on the bench, reinstated after the Chief Judge, Lorraine Tate, reviewed the eval's holes and called it a disgrace. Nia ruled on a shoplifting case, her gavel steady, the courtroom buzzing with whispers of her stand. She felt the tide shift, her robes a shield again, her name ringing with respect. Victor Ramsay watched it unfold from his duplex, the TV flickering in his dim living room, a half-empty bourbon bottle sweating on the coffee table. Her press conference, replayed on loop, her voice slicing through his haze, forged to silence me. He'd been reinstated Friday, swaggering back to the precinct, but this was a gut punch. His suspension loomed again, internal affairs sniffing harder, his captain, Dwayne Holt, dodging him like a plague. She'd turned his smear into her crown, and the rage boiled over, hot and black. He slammed the bottle down, glass cracking, and grabbed his phone, thumbs stabbing the screen. He wasn't letting her strut away clean. Victor had a buddy, an ex-cop named Travis, a wiry guy with a knack for tech and a grudge against uppity types. They met at a dive bar off Ponce de Leon, neon buzzing over sticky tables, the air thick with grease and smoke. "She's got to pay," Victor growled, sliding Travis a 50 under the table. "Hack her email, find something juicy." Travis grinned, pocketing the cash, his laptop already glowing. By midnight, he'd cracked Nia's personal account, a string of late-night rants from her law school days, venting about racist cops after a classmate's arrest. "They profile, they brutalize, they laugh," she'd written, raw and unfiltered. Words any cop would twist into a vendetta. Tuesday morning, Victor leaked it to a tabloid, The Atlanta Pulse, a rag known for scandal. Over substance. The headline screamed by 8. Judge hates police, explosive emails reveal bias. The story cherry-picked her words, painting her as a cop-loathing radical. Her rant stripped of context. Her pain spun into venom. TV picked it up. Channel 5's anchor smirking. Is Judge Jackson unfit to rule? By noon, protesters swarmed. The courthouse, a mix of cop supporters and white nationalists, their signs jagged with hate. No black bias on the bench. Bottles flew, shattering on the steps, glass glinting in the sun as chants echoed, "Resign, resign." Nia watched. From her chambers, blinds cracked, her stomach twisting as a brick sailed through a window downstairs, the crash rattling her bones. Cases piled up, her docket clogging as attorneys filed motions to recuse her, citing prejudice from the leak. A DUI hearing stalled, the defense lawyer sneering, "Can we trust her impartiality?" Nia overruled it, her voice steel. But the damage crept in, colleagues whispering in halls, clerks avoiding her eyes. The courthouse felt like a cage, her bench a target, her every ruling questioned. She drove home at 6, the Honda weaving through traffic, her knuckles white on the wheel. The duplex loomed dark, the oak's branches clawing the sky, and she locked herself in, the deadbolts click a hollow comfort. Had she pushed too far, or not far enough? Victor nursed a whiskey at the dive bar, the TV overhead replaying the protest, bottles smashing in slow motion. He smirked, the bourbon burning his throat, the chaos his handiwork. Travis had delivered, the leak a dagger in Nia's back, her hero shine tarnished. His suspension was back on the table, Holt, fuming, but this felt better, sweeter. She'd crumble now, quit the bench, her lawsuit dead. He tipped the glass, ice clinking, imagining her alone, broken, her robes gathering dust. He'd won this round, or so he thought, blind to the fire he'd stoked. Nia didn't sleep. She sat up past midnight, the duplex silent save for the hum of a fridge, her laptop glowing with Victor's past. Marcus had sent files, old complaints against Ramsay, brutality claims from black drivers, all hushed by Holt's pen. A 2018 case stuck out, a teen beaten bloody for resisting. The report scrubbed, the kid's family paid off. She dug deeper, cross-referencing dates, precinct logs, her fingers flying over keys. Could this be the key to bury him? She emailed. A reporter she'd met at the press conference, a young woman named Sasha Lee from the Journal-Constitution, attaching the 2018 file. "Check this," she wrote, hitting send at 2:15, her pulse racing. Wednesday dawned grey, rain pelting, the duplex roof as Nia showered. The water cold, her shoulder welt fading to a dull ache. She dressed for court, a maroon suit, her braids tight, and drove through the downpour, wipers slapping. The protesters lingered, smaller now, soaked and surly, their signs sagging. She ruled on a theft case, her gavel firm, but the air felt thick, eyes boring into her back. Sasha's reply came at lunch, on it big if true. Nia exhaled, a spark flickering. Victor thought he'd humiliated her into silence, grinning in his bar, oblivious she'd turned his dirt into her shovel. She'd dig, expose, fight. Her shame a fuel, not a chain, and he'd never see it coming. Nia Jackson woke Thursday to the patter of rain on her duplex roof, the grey light seeping through blinds she'd left cracked after a sleepless night digging into Victor Ramsay's past. The 2018 brutality complaint glowed on her laptop screen, a black teen's broken nose and a payout to silence his family, buried by Captain Dwayne Holt's signature. She'd sent it to Sasha Lee, the Journal-Constitution reporter, at 2:15, her email a ticking bomb. Coffee brewed, bitter and black as she dressed in a slate blazer, her stitches tugging slightly, 10 days old now, a scar forming under her braids. She drove to court, the Honda's wipers slapping, her mind churning with the dirt she'd unearthed. Could this finally nail Victor to the wall? Sasha's story dropped at 9, a front-page gut punch. Officer Ramsay's brutality record exposed. Judge's tip-sparks probe. It detailed the 2018 beating, the hush money, Holt's cover-up, and linked it to Nia's lawsuit, her garage attack now a footnote in a broader war. The courthouse buzzed by 10, clerks whispering, a bailiff nodding her way with quiet respect. Internal Affairs called Victor in, his suspension reinstated by noon, a 30-day stretch pending a full review. Nia ruled on a petty theft case that... Afternoon. Her gavel steady, the courtroom's hum softer now, her name reclaiming its weight. She left at 5, the rain easing, a faint rainbow arching over Atlanta's skyline, a fragile promise she dared to believe. Victor stewed in his duplex, the newspaper crumpled in his fist, Sasha's words searing his eyes. Suspension again. 30. Days, his badge a ghost on the table, Holt's voice curt on the phone. Lay low, we'll fix it. He'd fixed nothing. The precinct a hornet's nest, his blue line chat dead silent. Nia's tip had cracked his shield, her press conference, still stinging her emails a public lash. He paced, boots scuffing the warped floor, bourbon bottle empty since last night. She'd turned his leak into her ladder, climbed higher, and now this? He'd bury her, not just her rep, but her whole damn life. Friday night, Victor met Travis. Again the ex-cop's laptop glowing in the dive bar's back booth, neon flickering outside. She's gotta go down hard, Victor growled, sliding 100 across the sticky table. Travis smirked, cracking his knuckles. Plant something, frame her clean. Coke's easy, cops love a drug bust. Victor nodded, his grin sharp, imagining. Nia cuffed, her robe stripped, her smug face smashed. Travis sourced the powder by midnight, a baggie of white death from a dealer off MLK Drive, pure enough to stick. Victor drove to Nia's duplex at 2, the oak dripping wet, her Honda parked out front, lights off inside. He moved fast, a shadow in the dark, popping the Honda's lock with a slim Jim, his breath fogging in the cool air. He tucked the cocaine. Under the driver's seat, a half-ounce lump wrapped in plastic, enough to scream intent. He wiped his prints, slipped away, and called in a tip from a burner at 3:15, voice low. Judge Jackson's dealing, check her car, Buckhead duplex. The dispatcher logged it, a narcotics unit dispatched by 4, lights off as they rolled up. Victor watched from a block away, parked in his truck, a cigarette glowing red, his pulse thrumming with glee. Nia jolted awake at 4:30, pounding on her door, blue and red flashing through her blinds. She stumbled out of bed, a t-shirt and sweats clinging to her, heart hammering as she peeked out. 4 cops, grim-faced, badges glinting, one barking, "Open up, Jackson, we've got a warrant." She unlatched the door, confusion clouding her, sleep-fogged mind, and they shoved past, a search team with a drug dog snarling at her heels. "What's this about?" she demanded, voice rising, but they ignored her, tearing into the duplex, cushions flipped, drawers yanked. The dog bolted outside, barking at the Honda, and Nia's stomach dropped. They hauled her out barefoot on the wet grass as a cop in gloves pulled the baggie from her car, triumph in his eyes. "Cocaine, half an ounce," he said, holding it. Up, cameras flashing from a news van that rolled up, tipped off by Victor's call. Channel 11 went live at 5. Drug judge busted. Judge Nia Jackson caught in sting. The anchor's voice gleeful. The feed streaming her in cuffs, hair wild, face stunned. Neighbors gawked from porches, whispers spreading, her duplex a crime scene taped off. The cops shoved her into a cruiser, the door slamming, her wrists chafing as sirens wailed. Victor grinned from his truck, the cigarette burned to ash, the news van's lights painting the street. She'd rot now, her bench gone, her lawsuit laughed out of court. He drove off, bourbon on his breath, imagining her in a cell, her smugness crushed. The precinct would back him, Holt would spin it. A judge dealing drugs too juicy to question. He'd won, or so he thought, blind to the cracks in his setup. The threads Nia could still pull. Nia sat in a holding cell by 6, the concrete cold under her feet, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Her mind raced, piecing it together. Victor's hand all over this, the tip too perfect, the coke too convenient. She demanded her call, dialing Marcus at 6:30, her voice low, urgent. "They framed me, cocaine in my car, live on TV." He cursed, promising to fight, his chair scraping as he stood. The drugs tested fake by 8, baking soda cut with sugar. A rushed lab run proving it a plant, but the damage stuck, headlines screaming, her name Mud. She was cleared by 9, released with a grunt from a desk sergeant, no apology, just a mix-up excuse. Nia walked out, the morning sun harsh, her sweat stained. The news van gone, but the story viral. Her duplex loomed, tape fluttering, a neighbor's glare cutting through her. The courthouse called at 10, her docket on hold, whispers of scandal trailing her. She crashed on her couch, the springs jabbing her back, exhaustion warring. With rage. Victor thought he'd broken her, smirking somewhere, but she'd rise, her shame aforge, her fight far from over. Let's hear your take. Did Nia deserve this brutal setup for pushing back? Or is Victor's frame job proof she's rattling the right cages? Drop comment number 1 if you're cheering her to claw out of this mess, or number 2 if you think she's dug her own grave. Was trusting the press her strength or her downfall? Smash like if her defiance lights a fire in you, and subscribe, because tomorrow's showdown will shake this story to its core. So, what happens when the city turns on Nia and the flames start licking her chambers? Nia Jackson slumped on her duplex couch Saturday afternoon, the springs digging into her spine, her sweat still stained from the staged drug bust that aired live 12 hours ago. The fake cocaine, baking soda and sugar had cleared her by morning, but the headlines lingered. Drug judge scandal rocks Atlanta, her face a punching bag for every news scroll. The courthouse had put her docket on ice, whispers of tainted credibility echoing down marble halls, her phone silent save for Marcus Gray's gruff texts. We'll sue again, hang tight. She rubbed her temple. The stitches gone, but the scar a faint ridge, Victor Ramsay's ghost haunting her every breath. She'd risen from his setup, but the weight pressed harder. A city turning its back. Sunday broke with a public outcry. Activists flooding social media. Free Judge Nia trending by noon. Black leaders rallying on the courthouse steps, their megaphones crackling. She's a target, not a crook, a woman bellowed, her voice raw, while a crowd of 50 clapped, fists raised. The Journal-Constitution ran Sasha Lee's follow-up. APD frame exposed, judge cleared, questions mount. The fake Coke, a lead story, Victor's name bolded. By Monday, the Chief Judge, Lorraine Tate, called Nia back, her tone clipped but firm. You're reinstated, effective now. Enough evidence to call it a setup. Nia drove to court, the Honda's engine coughing, her maroon suit crisp, her eyes blazing with a fire Victor couldn't douse. She took the bench Tuesday, 9 sharp, ruling on a vandalism case, her gavel a steady pulse, the courtroom packed, with onlookers, some nodding approval, others glaring. Word spread fast, her reinstatement a slap to the APD's smear, Victor's 30-day suspension now a public wound. She adjourned at noon, stepping into her chambers, a small room with peeling paint and a desk buried in files. She exhaled, the air stale, her robes hanging like a promise kept. She'd clawed back, her name half clean, but the victory tasted thin, a fragile shield against the storm she felt brewing. Victor Ramsay seethed in his duplex, the TV muted. Sasha's article crumpled on the floor, his suspension a chain he couldn't snap. The fake Coke had backfired, Nia walking free, her bench restored, his precinct buzzing with internal affairs suits sniffing his trail. Captain Holt had called, voice tight, "You're a liability, Ramsay, cool it." But cooling it wasn't his style. She'd humiliated him again, turned his frame into her comeback, and the rage festered, a beast clawing his gut. He grabbed, his phone thumb stabbing, and fired up the Blue Line Brotherhood chat, dormant since the leak but alive with his venom now. Wednesday night, Victor posted, "She's a black tyrant, ruining us. Rally downtown, end her reign." He tagged a white supremacist forum he'd lurked in, Patriot Guard, a cesspool of hate with 2,000 followers itching for a fight. By midnight, replies flooded. Time to burn her out, a skull emoji punctuating the threat. Victor grinned, bourbon on his lips, imagining her chambers in flames, her robes ash. He didn't care who lit the match, just that it burned. The plan gelled by Thursday, a rally set for Friday noon. End black tyranny. The cry, the courthouse the target. Friday dawned humid, the sky a bruised purple as Nia drove to work. The Honda weaving through traffic, her stomach tight. She'd seen the online chatter, Patriot Guard trending, her name a curse in all caps rants. She parked in the garage, the same spot where Victor's pistol had cracked her skull, her steps echoing as she climbed to her chambers. The courthouse hummed, clerks bustling, but an edge hung in the air, a tension she couldn't shake. She ruled on a trespass case at 10, her voice firm, the gavel a quiet thunder, then broke for lunch at 11:30, retreating to her office, a sandwich untouched on her desk. Outside, the rally swelled, 200 strong by noon, a mob of white faces, red caps and Confederate flags clotting the courthouse steps. Chants rolled, "No black judge, no black law," fists pumping, bottles clutched tight. Victor watched from a block away, parked in his truck, a cigarette glowing, his hoodie pulled low. He'd sparked it, fanned it, but stayed back, letting the beast he'd unleashed roar. A wiry man in a camo vest took the lead, megaphone blaring, "She's a cop-hater, a fraud, burn her out!" The crowd surged, a wave of hate crashing forward, glass shattering as rocks flew. Nia heard it first, a muffled roar seeping through her chamber walls, then a crash downstairs, windows splintering. She stood, heart pounding, peering through her blinds as smoke curled up from the steps, a Molotov cocktail's flame licking. The entrance. Footsteps thundered in the hall, a clerk bursting in. "Judge, get out, they're firebombing!" Smoke thickened, acrid and black, stinging her eyes as she grabbed her purse, her robes left hanging. She bolted for the back stairs. The clerk ahead, coughing, the building trembling as another bottle exploded below, glass and fire raining. The stairwell choked with haze, heat rising, her sneakers slipping on slick steps as she descended, lungs burning, her mind racing. Victor's hand was in this, she knew it, his hate a match to this tinder. She hit the ground floor, smoke billowing, alarms shrieking, and pushed through a service door, bursting into an alley 50 feet from the chaos. Flames clawed the courthouse facade, protesters howling, cops slow to respond, their sirens a distant wail. Nia stumbled, coughing blood, her blouse soaked with sweat, her knees scraping asphalt as she leaned against a dumpster, gasping. Victor smirked from his truck, the fire's glow painting his windshield, the mob's roar a symphony of his making. He'd stayed clean, no prints, no proof, just a spark he'd lit and let run wild. Cops rolled up, late and limp, batons swinging as the crowd scattered, flames licking higher. Random, they'd call it, he bet, sipping bourbon from a flask, his grin wide. She'd quit now, her chambers ash, her fight snuffed. He drove off, tires crunching glass, certain he'd broken her spine. Nia didn't quit. She staggered to her Honda, the garage untouched, and drove to Marcus's office 10 miles south, her breath ragged, blood speckling her sleeve from a hacked cough. He met her at the door, eyes wide. "Jesus, Nia, you're alive?" She nodded, collapsing into a chair, the stink of smoke clinging to her. "Victor's behind it, I know it," she rasped, her voice raw. Marcus cursed, pacing, then grabbed his phone. "We filed to oversee his case. Turn this on him." Nia's eyes hardened, pain fueling her. She'd take his trial, wield the gavel. He feared her chambers charred, but her will unburned. Victor thought he'd won, laughing in his hole, blind to the trap she'd spring. Nia Jackson woke Saturday in Marcus Gray's guest room, 10 miles from her smoke-scarred duplex, the stench of yesterday's firebombing still clinging to her hair despite a shower. Her lungs rasped, a dry cough hacking up flecks of blood from the courthouse blaze, her maroon suit crumpled in a corner, singed at the cuffs. Marcus had dragged her here after her escape, his voice gruff but steady. "You're taking Ramsay's trial, Nia. End him with his own game." She'd nodded. Exhaustion warring with fury, her scar tingling where Victor's pistol had struck weeks ago. She dressed in a borrowed black blazer, too big but sharp, and drove to the courthouse annex, a squat backup building 5 miles east, her Honda rattling through Atlanta's drizzle. Monday 9 sharp, Nia filed to oversee Victor's case, her motion typed overnight, Marcus's printer wheezing as it spat pages. The fire had gutted her chambers, but the annex stood ready, its docket shifted to cover the chaos. Internal Affairs had nailed Victor for assaulting a black teen, a 16-year-old named Jamal Carter, caught on a bodega camera 6 months back, his jaw shattered by Victor's fist over a suspicious loiter lie. The charge landed last week, expedited after Sasha's expose, and Nia claimed it, her robes a mantle of vengeance. The clerk stamped it by noon, her name locked to his fate, a collision course set. Tuesday dawned grey, the annex courtroom packed by 10, a wood-panelled box with flickering lights and a hum of tension. Nia took the bench, robes crisp despite the annex's damp air, her gavel gleaming, her eyes locking on Victor as he slouched at the defense table. He squirmed, his suit ill-fitting, a month's suspension hollowing his swagger, his broad frame hunched under the weight of eyes. The prosecutor, a lean black woman named Tara Brooks, laid out the case, her voice a blade. Officer Ramsay assaulted Jamal Carter unprovoked on May 3rd. Video shows him slamming the miner's face into pavement, breaking his jaw. Witnesses confirm racial slurs. The footage rolled, grainy but brutal, Jamal's cries piercing the silence, Victor's snarl clear as he barked, "Stay down, punk." Nia ruled with steel, admitting the video, her voice cutting through objections, her gaze steady on Victor. He fidgeted, sweat beading on his brow, the evidence a noose tightening. Tara called Jamal, his face still swollen, braces glinting as he spoke. "He said I didn't belong there, called me trash." The jury, 6 men and 6 women, half black, half white, leaned in, some wincing, others stone-faced. Nia felt the room tilt, her own stop flashing, Victor's cuffs on her wrists, his venom in her ears. She stayed impartial, her training a shield. But the parallels burned. Victor's lawyer, a slick white guy named Paul Vance, fought back, his tie a loud red slash. The teen resisted, swung first. Ramsay acted in self-defense. He called. Captain Dwayne Holt, Victor's precinct boss, a hulking figure in a starched uniform, his grey hair buzzed short. Holt perjured himself, voice smooth. "I reviewed the stop." Carter lunged. Ramsay restrained him. Standard protocol. Nia's gut twisted. Holt's lie a brick wall, his eyes flicking to her with a glint of warning. She couldn't overrule without proof, bias claims lurking, and the jury wavered. A white woman scribbling notes, a black man frowning deep. Tara countered, cross-examining Holt, her questions sharp. "Where's the body cam? Why'd you close?" 3 prior complaints against Ramsay, Holt stammered, lost in a glitch, unrelated incidents. The jury shifted, doubt creeping, but no knockout blow landed. Nia adjourned at 4, her gavel a sharp crack. "We resume tomorrow." Victor smirked, a flicker of hope in his eyes, freedom scenting close. He thought Holt's lie had saved him, the system bending as always, Nia's power blunted. He leaned to Vance, whispering, his grin a knife she couldn't touch. Post-hearing, Nia stepped into the annex lot at 4:30, the drizzle soaking her blazer, her keys jingling as she neared the Honda. She didn't hear the footsteps, didn't see Victor's goons until they struck, 2 white guys in hoodies, faces masked, one swinging a tire iron. It grazed her arm, a jolt of pain as she stumbled, the other slashing her tires, rubber hissing flat. She swung her purse, catching one in the jaw, his grunt muffled as he staggered. They bolted, leaving a noose dangling on her windshield, twine wet and coiled, a note pinned. "Quit or die." Nia froze, rain streaking her face, her arm throbbing, the noose swaying in the wind. She called Marcus from the car, voice shaking. "His crew jumped me, left a noose." He roared, "Get here now." She drove on flats, the Honda lurching 5 miles to his office, her pulse a drumbeat. Cops met her there. A tired black officer, named Evans, taking pics, his partner shrugging. "No cameras, no IDs, tough break." They logged it, another dead-end file, Victor's prints nowhere but everywhere. Nia sat in Marcus's cluttered room, ice on her arm, fury rising like bile. Victor's payback had teeth now, his smirk a dare, her trial a battlefield he'd rigged. She didn't flinch. Back home by 8, the duplex dark, she patched the tires with a kit from her trunk, her hands steady despite the ache. Marcus dug deeper, pulling Holt's old emails, hunting perjury proof while Nia prepped for tomorrow, her rulings a spear she'd sharpen. Victor thought he'd scared her off, his goons a checkmate, but she'd wield the gavel harder, her fury a forge. He sat in his duplex, bourbon in hand, smirking at the noose's echo, blind to the storm she'd bring. "Your turn to weigh in." Is Nia's courage in taking Victor's trial a power move or a reckless gamble? Drop comment number 1 if you're with her swinging that gavel against his neck, or number 2 if you think she's inviting more blood. Did Holt's lie tip the scales too far, or can she still break through? Hit like if her grits got you clenched, and subscribe because tomorrow's clash will twist this tale into knots. So, what happens when Victor's verdict lands and the payback cuts deeper than a noose? Nia Jackson woke Wednesday in her duplex. The bruise on her arm from Victor Ramsay's goons a dull purple smear. The noose's twine still coiled on her kitchen counter like a taunt from last night's ambush. She'd patched her Honda's tires until 2, her hands raw, then crashed for 4 hours, her dreams a tangle of fire and gavels. The annex courtroom loomed, Victor's trial resuming at 9, Jamal Carter's broken jaw her weapon to wield. She showered, the water lukewarm, her scar itching where his pistol had struck a month back and pulled on a forest green suit, her braids tight, her resolve a blade honed sharp. She drove through Atlanta's morning haze, the Honda's engine grumbling, her pulse steady despite the ache. The courtroom buzzed by 9:15, spectators cramming the benches, a mix of activists and cop loyalists, their whispers a low hum. Nia took the bench, robes flowing, her gavel a quiet threat as Tara Brooks, the prosecutor, pushed forward, her voice slicing the air. Jamal Carter posed no threat. Ramsay's force was excessive, the video proves it. She recalled witnesses, a bodega clerk testifying, he just hit him, no reason, his accent thick, his eyes darting to Victor. The jury leaned in, a black woman nodding, a white man's jaw tight, the evidence piling like bricks. Nia ruled crisp, admitting every frame, her gaze locking Victor's, his smirk gone, sweat glistening on his brow. Paul Vance, Victor's lawyer, flailed, his red tie swinging as he rehashed Holt's lie. Carter resisted. Ramsay protected himself. But Tara dismantled it, showing the video's timestamp, no lunge, just a kid crumpling under Victor's fist. The jury deliberated at 3, filing out, their faces unreadable, Nia's stomach a knot as she retreated to a borrowed office, the annex's burnt-out sister still smouldering in her mind. At 5:30, they returned, the foreman standing, voice flat. Guilty. Assault in the 2nd degree. Cheers erupted, activists clapping. Victor's shoulders slumping as cuffs snapped on, his eyes blazing hate at Nia's bench. She banged the gavel, silencing the room, her voice steady. Sentencing next week, defendant remanded. Victor's. Glare burned, a promise of worse, but Nia held it, her triumph a shield. She'd nailed him, his badge a memory, her justice a hammer dropped. She left at 6. The annex lot damp from afternoon rain, her Honda's tires patched but rolling, the noose's echo fading. She drove home, the city's lights blurring, a weight lifting, her brother Darnell's voice on her mind. He'd texted, "Yesterday, proud of you, sis." A mechanic in Decatur, 28, her rock since their dad passed. Victor seethed in a holding cell, the concrete cold, his suit wrinkled, the guilty verdict a slap he couldn't dodge. Vance stormed in at 7, his tie loose. "Will appeal, misconduct, you'll walk." Victor nodded, but the loss gnawed, Nia's gavel a spike in his gut. He'd lost the trial, but not the war. Holt had ghosted, internal affairs circling. His blue line chat a graveyard, but he had one card left. He whispered to Vance, "Get Travis, hit her where it hurts." Vance smirked, slipping out, the plan of venom brewing fast. Thursday, Vance filed the appeal at 8. Judicial misconduct, alleging Nia tampered with evidence, a lie backed by forged logs from a clerk named Perry, the same weasel who'd faked her psych eval. He'd taken Holt's cash again, timestamps doctored, claiming Nia altered the video's metadata. The annex buzzed by 9, the appeal hitting Nia's desk, Lorraine Tate calling her in. "This is serious, Jackson. You're suspended pending review." Nia's chest tightened, the verdict voided. Victor walking free by noon, his cuffs off. His grin back as he strutted out, bourbon on his mind. Nia stormed to Marcus's office, the appeal clutched, her voice shaking. "They're lying, Marcus, I never touched it." He paced, his bald head gleaming. "Perry's Holt's puppet, we'll prove it." But the damage hit, her bench gone again, the city's cheers souring to whispers. She cheated. She drove home at 2, the duplex dark, her phone buzzing. With Darnell's call, "You okay, sis?" She forced a smile. "Yeah, just a bump." He laughed. "Tough as nails, you." She hung up, sinking into the couch, the noose still there, a relic of Victor's hate she hadn't tossed. Thursday night, Victor met Travis at the dive bar, neon buzzing, the air thick with smoke. Her brother Darnell works at Autofix in Decatur, Victor growled, sliding a 50. "Grab him, make it hurt." Travis nodded, pocketing the cash, his wiry frame tense with glee. They struck at 10, Darnell locking up the shop, his overalls greasy, his keys jangling. 2 goons, Travis's crew, jumped him, fists flying, a pipe cracking his ribs. His scream cut short as they dragged him to a van, tires screeching off. They dumped him at midnight, a vacant lot 5 miles east, beaten near death, his face a pulp, a note pinned. "Tell your sister to back off." Nia's phone rang at 12:15. An ER nurse voice clipped. "Darnell Jackson, your brother, critical condition, Grady Memorial." She bolted, the Honda roaring, her heart a jackhammer as she hit the hospital by 12:40. The ER sterile. And bright Darnell on a gurney, tubes snaking from his chest, his left eye swollen shut, blood crusting his lips. She crumpled beside him, tears falling, her hand clutching his pulse faint under her fingers. "Victor," she whispered, the note crumpled in her pocket, his vengeance a sledgehammer to her soul. She stayed till dawn, Darnell stable but broken, ribs cracked, a lung punctured, his breathing a rasp. Marcus arrived at 6, his tie gone. "We'll get him, Nia, this is war." She nodded, tears drying, despair clawing her chest. The appeal had freed Victor, her win snatched, and now Darnell paid, his blood on her fight. She drove home at 5:00. 7, the duplex a tomb collapsing on the couch, the noose staring back. Victor had crushed her hope, his grin a spectre, but she'd rise, her pain a coal glowing hot, her next move a reckoning he'd never foresee. Nia Jackson slumped in her duplex Friday morning, the noose still coiled on the counter, a grim relic of Victor Ramsay's hate, her brother Darnell's bloodied face burned into her mind from the ER hours ago. She'd left Grady Memorial at 7, his ribs cracked, lung punctured, his pulse a fragile thread under her grip, the note back off a dagger in her pocket. The appeal had sprung Victor free yesterday, her guilty verdict voided by forged logs, her suspension a fresh wound. She showered, the water scalding, her scar throbbing where his pistol had struck 6 weeks back, and pulled on a black suit, her braids loose, her rage a furnace roaring hot. She'd fight, not fold, Darnell's pain her fuel. Marcus Gray met her at 9, his office a clutter of files and coffee stains, his bald head slick with sweat. "The logs are fake. Perry's work. Holt's orders," he said, slamming a stack of emails, old precinct correspondence tying Holt to 3 scrubbed complaints. Nia nodded, her voice low. "Reinstate me. Reopen Ramsay's case, add kidnapping, conspiracy." Marcus grinned, typing fast. "We've got him, Nia. This is the kill shot." They filed by 10, the annex clerk stamping it, Lorraine Tate calling, "At 11. You're back, Jackson. Logs debunked, trial's yours." Nia's chest swelled, her bench restored, Victor's freedom a thread she'd snap. Friday noon, Victor was rearrested, hauled from his duplex in cuffs, his bourbon bottle crashing as cops kicked the door, his roar echoing down the street. Internal. Affairs had cracked Perry's bribe, his confession spilling Holt's role, the appeal crumbling. Tara Brooks stacked new charges, kidnapping Darnell, conspiracy with Travis, the case ballooning by dusk. Nia drove to the annex at 1, her Hondas, patched tires humming, her suit crisp, her eyes steel. She took the bench Monday 9 sharp, the courtroom packed, Victor glaring from the defense table, his suit rumpled, his smirk gone, replaced by a snarl of trapped rage. Tara opened, her voice a whip. Ramsay orchestrated the abduction of Darnell. Jackson. Retaliation for Judge Jackson's rulings, evidence ties him to Travis Boone. Phone records flashed, burner calls from Victor to Travis the night Darnell was grabbed. A witness from the lot IDing the van. The jury, fresh but fierce, 8 women, 4 men, half black, leaned in. A mother's eyes wet as Darnell's hospital photos rolled, his face a swollen mask. Nia ruled steady, admitting every shred, her gavel a pulse. Victor's lawyer, Paul Vance, floundering, his objections limp. Circumstantial. Tara smirked. His prints are on the note. Victor's gut churned, the cuffs biting his wrists. Holt's silence a betrayal. Travis nabbed at dawn, ratting fast. He'd lost the appeal, the trial, now this, Nia's gavel a guillotine he couldn't dodge. He'd meant to break her. Darnell's blood a warning, but she'd turned it, her bench a fortress. Vance whispered, "We'll fight." But Victor's snarl cut him. She's dead. He'd hit harder, burn her world, his war unbowed. Nia saw it, his glare a promise, but she held firm, her justice a wall he'd crack against. Monday night, Holt struck back, his precinct allies unleashed. A bomb rigged under Nia's duplex porch, a crude mess of wires and gas cans. It blew at 10, a fireball shredding the oak, windows shattering, flames clawing the sky. Nia was at Grady, sitting by Darnell, his breath steadier, when her phone buzzed, a neighbor screaming, "Your house, it's gone!" She raced over. 11. Miles, the Honda screeching, arriving at 10:40, smoke thick, sirens wailing. The duplex a skeleton of charred brick, her life ash. Cops milled, a white officer shrugging. "No proof, gas leak maybe," his smirk a lie she saw through. Victor grinned from his cell, a guard slipping him the news. Her place torched, his laugh low, bourbon dreams fueling him. Holt had delivered, his allies a shadow army. Nia's world crumbling while he sat tight. She'd back off now, her brother down, her home dust, her fight snuffed. He leaned back, the cot creaking, imagining her tears, her robes buried in soot. But Nia stood in the rubble, midnight, ash on her shoes, rage a volcano erupting. She called Marcus, voice hoarse. "They bombed me, Victor's crew." He roared, "We'll sue Nail Holt." But her mind raced past lawsuits. Tuesday dawn. Nia checked into a motel off I-20, 8 miles west, her Honda hidden in the lot, her suit swapped for jeans, her few salvaged files in a duffel. She visited Darnell at 7, his eyes fluttering open. "Sis, you okay?" She nodded. Tears held, "Yeah, we're winning." She left at 8, the annex calling, her docket light but alive. She ruled on a theft case at 10, her gavel firm, the courtroom hushed, whispers of the bombing trailing her. At noon, Victor's goons struck again. A sniper at a gas station 5 miles north, her filling up. A bullet grazing her shoulder, ripping flesh, blood soaking her sleeve. She dropped, gas pump clanging, her scream sharp as she rolled behind the Honda, gravel biting her palms. The shooter fled, a black sedan peeling off. No plates, no trace. Cops arriving at 12:15, a young black officer bandaging her. "You're a target, Judge." She nodded, teeth gritted, blood dripping. Victor's wore a hydra she couldn't kill. She drove to Marcus's 13 miles, her arm throbbing, ice pressed to the wound, her voice steel. "He's not stopping." Marcus paced. "We've got the trial, hold on." Nia's eyes burned, wounded but fierce, prepping for the final. Blow Victor's endgame, her forge. Victor sat in his cell, a smuggled phone buzzing. Travis's voice grazed her, "She's tough." He smirked. "Keep hitting, she'll crack." Holt's bomb, the sniper. His crew a machine. Nia's life a thread he'd snap. She'd fight the trial, sure, but he'd bury her first. His grin a promise, her blood his trophy. Nia, bleeding. Knew it. Her motel room a bunker. Her gavel a spear she'd plunge, the showdown a storm she'd ride or die in. Nia Jackson woke Tuesday in the motel off I-20. Her shoulder a throbbing mess where the sniper's bullet had grazed her yesterday, a makeshift bandage soaked red under her t-shirt. The duplex bombing had left her homeless, Darnell's beating. At Victor Ramsay's hands a wound deeper than her own, his ribs healing slow at Grady Memorial. She'd ruled on a theft case at the annex that morning, her gavel steady despite the pain, her black suit hiding the blood seeping through. She showered now, the water stinging her raw flesh, and pulled on a grey blazer, her braids loose, her scar pulsing where his pistol had cracked her skull 2 months back. The trial loomed, Victor's endgame her crucible. She drove to the annex. At 8, the Honda's patched tires humming, her duffel of salvaged files bouncing in the back. The courtroom packed by 9, a restless sea of faces, activists cramming the front, cop loyalists scowling from the rear. Nia took the bench, robes heavy, her gavel gleaming as Tara Brooks opened, her voice a storm. Victor Ramsay ordered Darnell Jackson's kidnapping, conspired with Travis Boone. Burner phones prove it. Records flashed, calls pinging from Victor's cell to Travis's the night Darnell was grabbed. A lot witness testifying, saw the van, heard screams. Evidence piled, airtight, a noose tightening around Victor's neck. Tara rolled hospital photos, Darnell's swollen face, ribs taped, a mother on the jury gasping, a white man's jaw clenching. Conspiracy, kidnapping, assault, she listed, her eyes locking Victor's, his cuffs rattling as he shifted, his suit wrinkled, his glare a furnace of hate. Paul Vance floundered, his red tie swinging. No direct link. Boone acted alone. But Tara produced Travis's plea, signed yesterday. Ramsay paid me, wanted her broken. The jury, 8 women, 4 men, half black, leaned forward, a black man's fist tight, the verdict a heartbeat away. Nia ruled crisp, admitting every shred, her voice steel, Victor's snarl a caged beast's cry. The jury deliberated at 2, filing out, Nia retreating to a borrowed office, her shoulder aching, her breath shallow from smoke-scarred lungs, at E. 4:30 they returned, the foreman standing, voice firm, guilty on all counts. Cheers exploded, activists leaping, Victor's head dropping, his cuffs clinking as guards flanked him. Nia banged the gavel, silencing the room, her words steady. Sentenced to 20 years, state prison, no parole. She met his glare, his eyes promising hell, but her triumph stood, a mountain he couldn't climb. He'd rot, his war lost. Her justice a blade plunged deep. Victor seethed in the holding cell, the verdict a sledgehammer, 20 years a cage he'd claw from. Vance muttered, "We'll appeal," but Victor's snarl cut him. Not enough. Holt had ghosted. Travis flipped, his blue line dead, but he had one last play. He'd called Holt from a smuggled phone Sunday, burn her out all in. Holt, cornered by internal affairs, leaked Nia's motel address Monday. Judge the enemy posted to Patriot Guard, the white supremacist forum buzzing with 2,000 wolves. Victor grinned, his cot creaking, her winner spark he'd drown in blood. Tuesday night, Holt's allies struck. A mob of 50 storming the motel at 10, red caps and flags, fists clutching pipes and bottles. Nia was inside reviewing files, her duffel open, when glass shattered, windows caving, gunfire popping like fireworks. "Get her!" a voice roared, boots pounding, a Molotov cocktail sailing through, flames licking the carpet. She grabbed. Her purse bolted for the back, her shoulder screaming as she kicked the door, smoke choking her lungs, her cough hacking blood. Bullets zipped, one slicing her leg, a hot slash above her knee, her scream lost in the chaos. She stumbled into the lot, the Honda 50 feet off, flames curling from the motel's roof, the mob surging, pipes swinging. She limped, blood soaking her jeans, her pulse a jackhammer as shots rang, glass exploding behind her. A cop car screeched up at 10:15, late, sirens wailing, 2 officers leaping out, batons cracking skulls as the mob scattered, shadows melting into the night. Nia collapsed by the Honda, gravel biting her palms, her leg afire, blood pooling under her. The black officer Evans knelt. "Hold on, Judge," his radio crackling for medics, his partner shrugging. "Too dark, no IDs." Medics arrived. At 10:30, hauling Nia to Grady, her leg bandaged, her shoulder cleaned, her lungs rasping from smoke and strain. She lay in the ER, Darnell 2 rooms down, his eyes open now. "Sis?" She nodded, tears falling, her voice a whisper. "Got him, 20 years. He squeezed her hand, weak but alive, her fight, his lifeline. Marcus stormed in at 11, his tie gone. Holt's crew, Victor's orders, "We'll prove it." Nia's, eyes dulled, despair creeping, her win hollow, her body broken, the cost a mountain of ash. Victor laughed in his cell, a guard whispering, "Motel's toast, she's hit." His grin wide, bourbon dreams alive. Holt's mob had struck, her leg bleeding, her spirit cracked. He'd won the war, he thought, her gavel silenced. He leaned back, the concrete cool, imagining her tears. Her robes burned, her fight a flicker snuffed. But Nia, stitched and scarred, questioned it all. The ER's hum a dirge, her couch gone, her brother battered, her justice a pyre. Victor's victory loomed, his laugh a spectre, her breaking point a shadow she'd crawl from or die in. Nia Jackson woke Wednesday in Grady Memorial, her leg a throbbing mess where the mob's bullet had torn through last night, a bandage tight around her thigh, her shoulder still raw from the sniper's graze 2 days prior. Darnell slept too, rooms down, his ribs mending, his breath a steady rasp. The ER's hum a faint comfort. She'd sentenced Victor Ramsay to 20 years yesterday, her gavel a final blow, but the motel siege had shattered her victory, gunfire and flames leaving. Her broken, her duplex ash, her fight a pyre of loss. She sat up, wincing, her scar itching where his pistol had cracked her skull 10 weeks back, her grey blazer draped over a chair, blood crusting the sleeve. Marcus Gray burst in at 8, his bald head gleaming, his tie missing, a stack of files, clutched tight. Holt's under investigation. Internal Affairs nabbed him last night. Mob ties confirmed, he said, his voice a growl of triumph. Nia nodded, her throat dry, the news a flicker in her haze. Victor rotted in state prison, shipped out at dawn, his cell a concrete box 60 miles north. Holt's downfall a bonus, she'd savor later. She checked out by 9, a crutch under her arm, her legs stiff, Darnell stable enough to smile. "You did it, sis." She drove the Honda to a new rental, a drab apartment 10 miles east, her duffel light, her spirit heavier. Thursday, Nia returned to the annex, her robes patched from smoke, her gavel steady as she ruled on a shoplifting case. The courtroom hushed, eyes tracing her limp. The city hailed her. Judge survives mob, nails cop, the Journal-Constitution blaring her name, activists chanting outside, a frail black man saluting from the steps. Her leg ached, a dull fire with every step, her shoulder a knot of pain. But she stood tall, her scar a badge, her bench reclaimed. Victor's appeal loomed, a whisper from his lawyer, Paul Vance, but she brushed it off, her 20-year sentence. A rock he'd never shift. She'd won, hadn't she? Friday night, Nia sat in her new apartment, a bare box with a sagging couch and a single lamp, her duffel unpacked, Darnell's hospital release papers on the table. She sipped water, her throat raw from smoke-scarred lungs, her mind drifting to the trial, Victor's glare, the mob's roar. Holt faced charges, conspiracy, bribery, his precinct a house of cards tumbling, Internal Affairs digging deep. She exhaled, a weight lifting, her war's cost etched in her flesh, her brother's survival a thread of light. She'd risen from the stop, the vandalism, the pistol whip, the firebombing, the frame, the sniper, the siege, each blow a hammer forging her steel. Monday, Nia ruled on a traffic case, her gavel a quiet pulse, the annex steady despite its scars, her name a whisper of awe. She adjourned at 11, limping to a borrowed office, her crutch clacking, a clerk slipping in at 11:30, his face pale, a file trembling in his hand. "Judge, this came up. Ramsay's appeal. Urgent," he stammered, dropping it on. Her desk, a manila folder thick with threat. She frowned, opening it slow, her pulse quickening, the air suddenly heavy. Inside, a USB drive gleamed, a note taped. "Play me," in Vance's scrawl, her gut twisting as she plugged it into her laptop. The screen flickered, a grainy video loading, time-stamped 6 months back, before Victor's trial, before Darnell's beating, before the mob. Nia froze, her breath snagging, the footage a gut punch she couldn't dodge. It was her in the annex evidence room late at night, her suit dark, her braids loose, a flash drive in her hand. She watched herself swap Jamal Carter's assault. Video, the real one, unedited with a doctored cut. Metadata tweaked to hide Victor's slurs, his brutality sharper in the original. Her fingers moved fast, a desperate act from May buried deep, a secret she'd locked in her bones. She'd done it after the fake coke bust, Part 7's chaos, her reputation shredded, Victor's frame a noose she'd slipped. In, a favor from a night clerk, swapped the file to ensure his guilt. her justice a lie she'd spun. The real video showed Victor snarling, "Die, filth," a death threat the jury never heard, her edit cleaner, tighter, a conviction sealed. She'd buried it, her oath a casualty, her fight a fraud masked as truth. The appeal claimed she'd rigged it, Vance's note a dagger. Recuse or we expose, her secret a bomb, ticking loud. Naya's hands shook, the laptop's hum a dirge, her leg throbbing, her shoulder aching, her world tilting. She'd framed him not with coke but with this, a choice born of rage, of Darnell's blood, of Victor's unrelenting war. She'd won, sent him away, but at what cost? Her justice, her robes, her name, all tainted, a hero's mask over a cheat's heart. She stood crutch-clattering, her reflection in the window a stranger, her scar a lie's brand. Victor rotted, yes, but she'd rigged the fall, her triumph ash, her legacy a riddle unraveling fast. Tuesday, Naya resigned, her letter typed at dawn, her hands steady, her voice gone as she handed it to Lorraine Tate. Personal reasons, a hollow excuse. Tate frowned. You're a fighter, Jackson. Why? Nia shook her head, silent, her crutch tapping as she limped out, the annex fading behind her. She walked into the street, head high, the city's cheers a distant echo, whispers spreading. She quit. The gavel sat silent, her robes folded, her apartment a tomb she'd leave. Victor's appeal stalled, his 20 years intact, but the video lingered, a ghost she'd dodge, her truth a shadow no one knew. She drove to Darnell's new place Wednesday, a small Decatur flat, his crutches matching hers, his grin weak but real. We made it, sis. She nodded, tears held, her duffel in the Honda, her life a slate wiped blank. She'd stood against Victor's prejudice, his bombs, his bullets, her fight a beacon, but the cost was her soul, her justice a mirror cracked. She hugged Darnell, his arms frail, her leg a limp, her shoulder a scar, her war a pyre she'd lit herself. The city spun on, her name a myth, hero or fraud, a question unanswered, her gavel's echo lost. Nia Jackson's journey in racist cop detains black woman on a traffic stop, shocked when she walks into court as the judge, offers profound lessons on resilience, justice, and the cost of fighting systemic racism. Her rise from a brutal traffic stop to a judge's bench showcases the power of perseverance against relentless prejudice. Victor Ramsay's escalating attacks, vandalism, assault, firebombing, and mob violence reveal how deeply racism can entrench itself, not just in individuals, but in institutions meant to protect. Nia's refusal to bow, even as her home burned and her brother bled, teaches that standing firm can shift tides, toppling corrupt power with grit and evidence. Yet, the twist unveils a darker truth. Justice, when bent by desperation, risks tainting the very fight it fuels. Nia's secret tampering with evidence to ensure Victor's conviction forces us to grapple with morality's grey edges. Does the end justify the means when the system fails? Her resignation, a quiet exit from a hard-won throne, underscores the personal toll of such battles, where victory can hollow out the victor. This story warns that racism's war isn't won with one gavel strike. It's a marathon demanding vigilance, sacrifice, and unflinching honesty. Nia's legacy, hero or fraud, challenges us to question how far we'd go for justice and what we'd lose along the way. So, what do you think? Did Nia's fight prove the system can change, or did her fall show its unbreakable grip? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if her story stirred you, and subscribe for more tales of Justice's Edge. Share this with anyone who's faced their own Victor Ramsay. We're stronger together. Thanks for joining this wild ride. Here's to courage in the face of fire and truth that cuts deep.